Welcome, everybody.
Yes. All right, good afternoon. We wanted to stand before you today with our partners to give you an update on the case of Kason Thomas. Kason Thomas is still missing, and our number one priority is to bring Kason home safely. Nalah Jackson is still missing. The Honda Accord has still not been found. Efforts to find Kason has been ongoing since the very beginning, and we have not stopped looking. We are using all available resources. We want to thank the Ohio State Patrol, FBI, Dayton Police, Montgomery County Sheriff, Vandalia Police, Huber Heights, Middleton Police, Riverside, Inglewood, Airport Police, Butler Township Union, New Lebanon, Brookville, Jackson Township, and Farmersville for all their efforts into helping us with this case. I encourage anyone that may have any information, big or small, to call the tip line. You may not think it's significant, you may not think it's important. It could be as simple as a woman asking for money on the side of the road. We're asking you to call the tip line to help us try to bring Kason home safely. If it's something that is happening right in that moment and it's something that's active, we're asking that you call 911 and give that information. If it's information that you think you have that's valuable, that's not happening in that moment, I'm going to give you two different numbers that you can call. That first number is 614-645-4701. Again, that's 614-645-4701. Or you can call 1-800-CALL-FBI. Again, that's 1-800-FBI. That number is manned 24 hours, 7 days a week. If you have any information, we're begging you to please contact 911 if it's something that is happening right there in front of you in that moment, or call one of the additional numbers if you have information that you think can be helpful in helping us either locate Kason Thomas, locate Nalah Jackson, or even the vehicle. We want that information, so we are begging you, please call those numbers and give us that information. We've been working this case nonstop since the very beginning. I know we met yesterday and we talked about some of the things that we had done up until that point. Now I want to bring Deputy Chief Weir up so that he can give you additional information that we've been doing since the time that we talked last.
All right. Good afternoon. Since we talked last yesterday afternoon, at approximately 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon, our lead detective, Detective Martin, with our Special Victims Bureau, filed 2 counts of kidnapping charges on Nalah Jackson. Those warrants were filed through Franklin County, and they do have a nationwide pickup radius. Around approximately 6:30 p.m. last night, we activated our operations center and staffed it with detectives, officers, and intelligence analysts. We deployed 12 detectives to continue the investigation in both Columbus and Western Ohio. All incoming tips were logged, triaged, and assigned for follow-up. 7:44 p.m., a BOLO was issued in the 5 contiguous states that border Ohio for Ms. Jackson, the vehicle, and the child. We were unable to issue an Amber Alert since we do not have a confirmed sighting of Ms. Jackson in a different state. So we have the Amber Alert that's active in the state of Ohio, but we were not able to do so in the contiguous states. So those 5 states received a BOLO for law enforcement with the same information that was listed in the Amber Alert. 8:06 p.m., detectives made contact with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, who provided assistance and contacted Team Adam. Team Adam is a team of volunteers and experts that help assist in cases of missing and exploited children. 8:54 p.m., detectives responded to Vandalia, Ohio, and met with officers in that jurisdiction, Vandalia PD and the Dayton Airport Police. Discussed the measures they had taken to search their jurisdiction for the child and the suspect. Our detectives conducted an exhaustive search of the area around where the suspect had been to confirm that Kason Thomas had not been abandoned nearby. Detectives also made contacts at the airport and reviewed video of the suspect from the previous morning. Information at the sites in the Dayton area indicate the suspect was asking individuals to use their phone. Investigators were able to, or from the Division of Police and partner organizations, were able to locate some of those individuals and determine the persons contacted. 10:04 p.m., detectives interviewed a boyfriend in Columbus at a previous listed address for Miss Jackson. The male provided information concerning the phone call he had received from the suspect prior to the incident taking place. Our EOC, our Emergency Operations Center, talked to the following jurisdictions and inquired as to whether they had received any new reports of stolen vehicles in their respective jurisdictions to see if maybe Miss Jackson had dumped the car, the Honda Accord, and was looking for a new car. Huber Heights, Vandalia, Middletown, Riverside, Dayton, Englewood, Airport Police, Butler Township, Union, New Lebanon, Brookville, Jackson Township, and Farmersville. Middletown Police was the only one of those jurisdictions that reported a recent stolen vehicle. We were able to confirm the tag and that was entered into leads, and detectives and officers did look for that vehicle. 11:28 p.m., detectives attempted to contact several relatives of the suspect. The Ohio State Highway Patrol called in a tip that was received regarding a person handing over a child to a woman in a separate vehicle up in Richland County. The Highway Patrol, Richland County Sheriff's Office, and Akron Police helped follow up on that tip, which appears unrelated at this time, and we are grateful for their assistance on that one. Detectives checked hotels and motels throughout the 70 and 75 corridor in Vandalia, Middletown, and Dayton. The teams also searched apartment complexes in a trailer park in Montgomery County. The detectives checked shelters in the greater Dayton area with negative results. 11:55 p.m., detectives were able to locate two individuals that had talked to Miss Jackson around the Dayton airport. Individuals were interviewed and cooperated with the investigation. And then lastly, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children received the tip that Miss Jackson, a male, and the baby were at a gas station in the Dayton area. Our detectives are following up and trying to corroborate whether that was in fact true or not. So those are the updates that we have in terms of actions taken overnight and into this morning. And I will turn it back over to Chief Bryant.
I just want to say that this is so extremely important to all of us. We're going to continue to update you. We're going to continue to let you know all the efforts that we're taking to bring Kason home safely. This won't be the last update. We want to focus on bringing Kason home. We want to focus on locating Nalah Jackson. That is our focus today. So we're going to open it up for questions, and we want to really just reiterate that we are trying to make sure that we do everything that we can to locate Kason Thomas and bring him home safely. And with that,
man, that's a lot of departments you named in Montgomery County, a lot of activity in Montgomery County. Do you have reason to believe Miss Jackson and this baby boy are in Montgomery County?
Based on the events over the past hours, several hours, and the past couple days, that is our focus, because that is where our tips and our information have led us. So we're going to continue to focus on that, but we're not just focused on that. We're focusing on any and everything that comes our way. Any information, any tips, anything that we get, we're going to make sure that we're looking. We're working with the FBI. Clearly, the FBI has jurisdiction not just in the state of Ohio. So any information that we get that we can push out, or anything that any tips we get, we're going to work them exhaustively until we find Kason.
What role is the FBI playing in investigating Kason's disappearance?
So they have been great in their partnerships and the ability to give us whatever resources that are necessary to help us. Whether it's personnel, whether it's technology, they've been extremely helpful in giving us anything that we need to be able to do what we need to do to find Kason and locate Nalah.
Chief, the delay in issuing the Amber Alert, was this because of some lack of meeting criteria, or due to some miscommunication between CPD and the Ohio State Highway Patrol?
So I'm going to bring up one of the personnel from the Ohio State Patrol so that they can give you a better understanding of how this works. And just so you know, there is a process, and he'll explain it, but it was being worked. This information was absolutely put out. It's a process, and who's gonna step up and be able to explain it?
Yeah. Lieutenant Nathan Dennis with the Highway Patrol. So how this process works is when an agency reaches out to the watch desk or the Ohio State Highway Patrol's communications center requesting an Amber Alert, there's certain criteria that the Ohio Revised Code says has to be met before that system can be activated. So there's a checklist that has to be gone through to ensure that per the Ohio Revised Code, this Amber Alert can be issued. Once that's done, then it's a matter of gathering the information. So when you gather the information, you have to have the names of the children, as well as much suspect information as you can gather, and additionally the vehicle information. So once all of that's compiled and figured out, then we can start the activation process of the Amber Alert. So for this situation, the Amber Alert was actually started. The activation of that happened at 12:31. And how that is activated is the first thing they do is activate what's called a Lumen line, which allows the tips. It's the phone line that can be called for tips and things like that. We need to ensure that that's active so people, when they see this notification, they can contact somebody. After the Lumen line's activated, then we start activating the other systems. So there's the emergency alert system, which puts banners across televisions, and then also it comes across your radio as an emergency broadcast. That script has to be written with that description in it. And then the National Center for Missing and Endangered or Exploited Children has to be contacted. They're the ones that actually set off the alert for the wireless emergency alert system, which is what you get over your cell phone. So you have to then communicate with them to come up with the message that they're going to put out. That message can't be more than 90 characters, so there's a character limit on that message. So it's communication back and forth with them to establish what that message is going to be. Then they issue that alert. Meanwhile, we're in contact with ODOT to get messaging boards changed over so that this is appearing on the highways. We're working to get all of this entered into leads. At the very beginning of this, our troopers were notified via their computer in their cars to BOLO for this vehicle and this suspect. And then after all of these agencies have come together and they've worked to get these messages out, then that Amber Alert activation is complete. So that process can take from an hour to an hour and a half by the time you get all these different agencies on board to activate this entire system.
We were told that CPD first called OHP around 11:41, but the initial call went out about 9:45 about this incident. So why did those 2 hours pass, and is this acceptable in a situation like this?
Excuse me. So ideally, you absolutely want to contact and get that information rolling as soon as possible. But like he explained, gathering the information and not waiting until an actual Amber Alert comes out to get that information to the state troopers, to other agencies, being able to put that information out and get it out without waiting for the Amber Alert is critical as well. So I'm not going to say that timeline was, ideal. Ideally, you want to get it out immediately. But the personnel, they were working as hard as they could to get the information, to be able to have it enough and meet the criteria to get that Amber Alert going.
So, Chief, why not something then with a lower threshold? If this is such an onerous process, something along the lines of an endangered missing child alert? Because we have talked to multiple people in Montgomery County, in our coverage area in Dayton, who say, I saw Miss Jackson in the time frame prior to her even dropping off Kyra at the airport, but did not know who she was because the bell had not been rung publicly sooner. What do you say to people who have those concerns?
DC?
So when we provided the timeline yesterday, we initially, I think within half an hour of the original run, within 20 minutes of our officers arriving at scene, it shows on the CAD on the computer-aided dispatch for the run report that we advised the neighboring jurisdictions, Upper Arlington, Grandview, and so they were alerted right away. Obviously, all 5 zones were alerted. I think they went to priority runs on the citywide, on 1s and 2s, which is our priority dispatch system. So basically, we restricted runs. We pulled all officers from 16 precinct down to back down to First and High for a grid search. That started, I think, within 20 minutes of being there. So we had a phenomenal response. Sometimes these things are complicated. Sometimes you have to work through obstacles. We had lots of obstacles we had to go through with the identification of that car and the suspect. Those things take time. They were reviewing video. They looked at it. They had to talk to different employees of the Donatos, different people that could identify the suspect, people that knew the suspect. Obviously, the victim didn't know the suspect, so that wasn't like we had where in some cases where a victim says it was this person who took my children. Where that makes it immediate, where you can call immediately and say, hey, this is the suspect information, we have it. Our officers had to go through a lot of legwork to identify who the suspect was before we were to put that out. Like we talked about yesterday, there were obstacles we had with the car. There was no license plate on the car. The VIN wasn't registered. We had to go through and backtrack. Our officers woke up the owners of a car dealership in the middle of the night and had them come to work to go through the paperwork to try to find a VIN to identify the vehicle, that we could provide a VIN number for the state and for officers throughout the state. So I get that there's questions about that, and those are, it's legitimate to ask those questions, but our officers had a lot of obstacles, and they did a really good job of going through all those things and working on a lot of different angles to identify suspect and vehicle within a very short time frame, while also doing a grid search and searching the area and checking the addresses that once we identified the suspect, they were going through and checking all of her former addresses throughout the city. So we had a lot of obstacles. The officers did their best to overcome those obstacles, and there you go.
Deputy Chief, you alluded to a phone call with the ex-boyfriend of the suspect. Could you maybe share details about what the character or content of that phone call might have been?
Yeah, it happened beforehand. It did not do anything to point to any criminal intent in terms of, I'm going to do this later tonight or anything like that. It didn't point to any homicidal or suicidal ideations. So he did relay what was said in the conversation, and our investigators are kind of going through that.
Deputy Chief or Chief, you've outlined all the work that's happened over the past days to try and find these two, and they still obviously haven't been found. What are the challenges that come up as more and more time passes?
Well, one was found, so luckily we were able to return one child home. The obstacles, obviously, as time goes by, we're concerned, which is why we're pleading and begging for anyone with information to give it to us so that we can find Kason and bring him home. The time frame is our biggest concern. We want to try to find this child as soon as possible.
I understand there have been a number of false alarms or incorrectly reported sightings of the vehicle. I mean, is this something that takes resources away from investigations, or is that something that you're looking for?
Well, luckily, yes. Any tip that comes in, we're going to investigate because it's that important. We need to make sure that we do everything possible. Fortunately for us, we have our partners. We have the Ohio State Patrol. We have the FBI. We have the neighboring counties. So we're able to utilize resources across the board, and it doesn't tax just one particular agency.
Deputy Chief, as a follow-up, we certainly appreciate the work everybody, law enforcement here, is doing to find this baby boy, because that's the biggest thing here. But aside, it's not just about notifying your officers. How did your department go about alerting the media and, by extension, the public, who are all here to help in the situation to try to find this baby boy?
So prior to the Amber Alert going out, our Special Victims Supervisor, Sergeant Fishburne, issued a media release at 12:05 a.m. That went out. It had the picture of the twins. It had the description of the vehicle, and I think a stock photo that you see there of the 2010 Honda Accord. So there was an attempt to alert the media and the public prior to the issuance of the Amber Alert.
Have there been any confirmed sightings of Kason? If so, when and where?
There have not.
Okay.
Our last confirmed sighting of the suspect was, at the airport or in the airport area. Approximately 4:40, 4:45 on Tuesday morning.
The
There's
pictures.
GoFundMe's going around and talk of rewards. Is any type of law enforcement going to be involved in a reward at all, or what does that look like going forward?
So obviously, Crime Stoppers handles a lot of that. We typically don't, as a municipal law enforcement agency, we typically don't handle money. Obviously, if somebody approaches us, we'll refer them to the appropriate sources that can coordinate that, and we are happy to do that. But we don't call around asking for that kind of stuff. I think that kind of gets us into a little bit of a trick bag.
Yeah, I didn't know.
You said efforts were made to contact the suspect's family. Did anything come of that? Did you learn anything more about her background, any potential mental health issues or anything like that?
We are starting to get some information about some of that, but we would like to speak to Ms. Jackson's family. And I think we've had some initial efforts, and we're still hoping to get in contact with them.
You said you'd be focusing on Montgomery County, not exclusive to Montgomery County, but just because of the way, those are the ways tips are leading you all right now, that you've got some indication of who she could be in the greater Dayton area at this point, just based on?
Based on where we found Kair and some of the things that occur, we're obviously focusing on that. But like I said, we're looking at everything. We're not ruling anything out. We want to make sure that we are exhausting every lead, every tip. And if we find out anything, again, if anyone has cited him, even if it's not in Ohio, you say, well, that couldn't possibly be him or that couldn't possibly be her because it's not in the state of Ohio. Please do not discard that. Call us, give us that information.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.